This is really light, and I'm doing another video showing evidence that the American Indians are not Israelites and that they're actually Asians that migrated from places like Mongolia and China. But first I'm going to show this clip from an Israelite group called HYK-12 Tribes.
In that pan all the way to a light brown. And a lot of Hispanics know that there are Hispanics that are even darker than I am. And there are Hispanics that go so light they even look like so-called white people. But you know what? They're still our people. They're still Israelites. Read that again.
Ephraim, he have mixed himself among the people.
So the scriptures say that the Puerto Ricans who are called Ephraim, the tribe of Ephraim in the Bible, have mixed themselves among the people, the white Spaniards, and what? Read on.
Ephraim is a cake not turned.
And Ephraim is a cake not turned. So that's Hispanic history in the Bible. Because the Bible is not the white man's book. The Bible is the book of the so-called American Negroes, West Indians, Haitians, and Hispanics. Now, let's get 2nd Esdras in the Apocrypha. 2nd Esdras 13, verse 40 to 45. Because when you go into it, when the Bible was first translated, there were a group of books in there that were taken out. These books were taken out in the 18th century. And these books were known as the Apocrypha. If you catch the show that I did on the history of the King James Version Bible, the Apocrypha is thoroughly explained. But the Apocrypha is a part of the Bible. Now, when you go into a lot of the scholars of this society, they say what? That the native Indians that we'll find in South America and the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico and Cuba, who are the ancestors of the Hispanics today, they say that these native Indians migrated from the Bering Strait from the north and traveled down to the south. But that's all lies. When you read the Bible and you do historical research, you find out that the Hispanics, their ancestors, who are the native Indians, came to the Americas from the Middle East, from the land of Israel. And they were fleeing persecution of the other nations. Is that recorded in the Bible? Yes. And we're also going to get historical research on it as well. But read 2nd Esdras chapter 13 and verse 40. And we're going to explain that. Read it when you have it.
13 and 40, as 2nd Ezra in the Apocrypha. Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king.
So now we start off the show by reading off the 12 tribes of Israel. You're going to find out that the majority of those tribes migrated out of the land of Israel. They were taken captive out of the land of Israel, and then they escaped and came to the Americas. And there are many books on that. Read it again.
Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king.
And you're going to find out that the Hispanics all come out of 10 tribes of the nation of Israel. Read.
Whom Salmanasar, the king of Assyria, led away captive.
And this is the king that took them captive. Read on.
And he carried them over the waters. And so came they into another land.
It's saying that the Israelites were taken out of their land and brought into another land, the land of Assyria, where they were held as slaves. Read.
But they took counsel among themselves that they would not leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt.
So now these Israelites said that they were going to leave the multitude of the nations and go into a further country where no man had ever lived. And what country is that? It's America. Because when you go into it, what people were here before the native Indians came here? Nobody. They were the first ones to come here and inhabit it. And what happened is these Israelites migrated from the Middle East on ships, came over to the Americas, where they were being called Indians by Christopher Columbus and his band of Spanish conquistadors. Read on.
42nd verse. That they may keep their statutes which they never kept in their own land.
So now these Israelites, who are called native Indians by Christopher Columbus and his Spanish conquistadors, they came over to the Americas to keep their own laws, the laws that are found in the Bible, in this new land, America.
Hello. First, I'd like to say God bless you. I sure enjoy your program very much.
Well, thank you.
And I probably have a silly question, but well, I'm wondering, you were talking a while ago about the world being divided before the flood.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if there's anything in the Bible that mentions where the Native American Indian came from. I've heard all kinds of theories. I've asked different pastors about this and never did get an answer. And I just wondered if there's anything in the Bible about that.
Okay, well, first let me, I quoted a reference that I quoted a scripture, never gave the reference. It's Genesis 10:25, Luann, where it says, it was in the days of Peleg that the earth was divided. As far as where the different races and people who populated the world came from, the Bible tells us in Genesis 11 that the whole earth was of one language, but at the Tower of Babel, when the Lord confounded the language because they were rebelling, basically, he scattered them. And so from that time, there was a great migration that took place in Genesis 11. And we understand, you remember what I said about the continents may have been closer together and there was a shift later?
Right.
From that time, some of these people may have migrated to North America. They believe that the natives that went to South America may have gone across by boat. Some of the natives in North America may have come over the Bering Strait. It could have been dry at that time. But these are people who very much resemble the inhabitants in the Orient. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, I worked on the Navajo reservation for 1.5 years, and my neighbors were all Navajos. And one of my neighbors came over one day, and he said, Pastor Doug, he said, I've got a question for you. He said, some Latter-day Saint, Mormon friends just left my house, and they tell me that I'm a Jew. And because you may have heard that the Latter-day Saints believe the American Indians are the lost tribes of Israel. Well, I'm looking at this fellow. Now, I'm Jewish. And I'm looking at my friend here, and he said, Doug, he said, I've been to Vietnam. And everyone over there confused me for a Vietnamese. He said, but I don't look anything like you. So I just want to know, are we brothers? And I said, Tim, we are brothers, but I don't think that it's because you're Jewish.
Amen.
There's nothing in the Bible that says the American Indians were descendants from the lost tribes of Israel. I believe that they migrated over like the other peoples that found their way to the islands in Australia and the Pacific and so forth.
Okay, I sure thank you very much, and God bless you.
Okay, God bless you, Luann.
Ask a Geneticist by Esther Blatter, Stanford University. Are Native American Indians fundamentally Asians? A curious adult from Singapore. August 20th, 2004. Most theories say Native American Indians migrated to the American continent from Asia across a land bridge around 11,500 years ago. Yes, this would in fact make the first Americans Asians. However, the story gets more complex, as I said. For a long time, archaeologists believed that all Native Americans were descended from people from Siberia who crossed over to Alaska about 11,500 years ago. They traveled on a land bridge under what is now the Bering Strait. These people were called the Clovis people after an archaeological site near Clovis, New Mexico. They first colonized the uninhabited lands of North America. Later they migrated to Central and South America. Scientists were able to figure this out from looking at human and other remains found at archaeological sites. Also, the language spoken by some Native American people closely resemble ancient Asian languages. This was more convincing evidence for the theory that Native Americans came from Siberia. Now there is evidence that people other than the Clovis people arrived to the Americas at different times and from different places. This evidence comes from looking at lots more archaeological sites and studying the DNA of Native Americans. Some years ago, archaeologists found the remains of an ancient settlement in Chile. They were surprised to find that it was 12,500 years old. This is much more ancient than the Clovis people. Also, the skeletons found in this site resemble more the people of Polynesia than the inhabitants of Siberia. The theory is that these people may have arrived by boat to America from Polynesia. Now we believe that there were separate groups of people who came to America from Asia. Scientists also found that studying Native Americans' DNA, the genetic blueprint that is passed down through generations, can show where they came from. They did this by looking at mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA. mtDNA comes from a small compartment of the cell called the mitochondrion. This is the place where all the energy is made for the cell. mtDNA is different from the DNA found in the nucleus in it that it always comes from the mother. DNA in the nucleus is from both mother and father. Looking at mtDNA lets you compare people across many generations on the mother side. Scientists looked at mtDNA from many Native Americans and many Asians. They were surprised again. Based on their DNA, Native Americans belong to 5 different groups. Groups 1 through 4 are closely related to Asian people. The 5th group is most closely related European or Western Asian people. So it seems most Native Americans were originally from Asia, and as you said, fundamentally Asian. However, it seems there are some whose origins are from Europe. I'm on a website called Uncommon Sense Ministries Incorporated. Mormonism. One DNA testing has proven Native American Indians are from Asia and not Israelites, as the Book of Mormon says, thus proving it in Joseph Smith false. Mormons contend that 2 groups of Israelites left from Israel in Cecil, landing in America. Many Mormons were encouraged by Thor Vidal, who sailed in the 1960s from Egypt and arrived in South America. Smith claimed the Native American Indians were Israelites, whose skin had been changed brown due to sin. The scientists said Native Americans were Asians who crossed a now vanished land bridge before the last ice age 10,000 years ago. They cited similarities in appearance and even some trace similarities in language between some Indians and Asian peoples, such as the Indians of the Andes and the people of Tibet. I'm still on the same website, and here's a picture of a woman that looks Native American. Look at her outfit and her facial features. Here's a picture of the same woman. Here's another picture of a woman that looks Native American. Her outfit looks Native American and her facial features. Here's the same woman. You are probably thinking these are pictures of Native American Indians or Eskimos, right? These are actually my Vietnamese Asian sisters-in-law, Lone and Yin, dressed as ancient Native Vietnamese. We took these pictures at Dalat, Vietnam in March 2007, at the home of the last emperor of Vietnam. To be exact, I asked my wife why they were dressed like Indians. She said they weren't dressed like Indians, but rather like the native people of Vietnam who lived there before the Khmer people, another group of Asians, arrived. As you can see, the resemblance to Native American Indians and Asians is striking. This picture right here pretty much sums it all up.